In a previous video, we put together a two-stroke bike build, and it turned out to be a rather nice kit. Some people don't like that two-stroke smoke, so I've had a lot of requests to do a four-stroke bike build. Once we put the four-stroke bike build together today, we're going to go ahead and do some testing and compare it to the two-stroke bike. Okay, the chain guard, fuel tank, muffler, chain, got the chain tensioner, accelerator, and another grip. That's the motor mount. And this is the sprocket that goes on the wheel. So this instruction manual is definitely not helpful for assembling the bicycle. All this does is give you information on how to properly maintain this engine. It has some safety instructions, some technical data about the engine, preparation, making sure there's enough oil in it, starting the engine, operation, servicing the engine, the parts diagram. The accelerator cable. Hey, this is the engine kit. Looks like this one has a little area for adding the oil. This is the sprocket. This has a centrifugal clutch on it. Overhead valves. And it has a pull start. First thing you gotta do is remove the rear wheel. Split one of these two in half so it'll fit around the inner part of the sprocket. Trying to get this sprocket installed can be a real easy process. The key for me is to look for the hole patterns within the spokes and line up the rubber gasket over top of the sprocket in a way, make sure it's centered, and make sure that every single hole is clear of the spokes. And that way, when you put the sprocket on, make sure the holes are lined up. To make this easy, unless you have 10 hands, I like to just take a piece of duct tape, and I go with cheap tape, not Gorilla, because you'll never get this tape off. Just apply the tape over top of the sprocket, and make sure you attach the tape to the spokes. All the bolts in the sprocket are held in place by this duct tape. Now that we got it flipped over, we can easily add the washers and the nuts on top of the bolts. Okay, now we got all the nuts started, we can just flip this back over and remove all the duct tape. So it's very important that the sprocket is centered around the axle or the hub, otherwise you'll end up having a lot of chain wobble. There's a pretty good sized gap between the sprocket and the hub, making it very difficult to have this thing centered up. So what I'm going to do is fill the space with zip ties. This will allow me to make sure it's perfectly centered. Now that we've got the zip ties acting as a spacer to tighten down between the hub and the sprocket, we're going to go ahead and incrementally tighten each one of these bolts sort of in a crossing pattern till we get the sprocket tight. And then of course we will make sure that the sprocket is an equal distance from the spokes all the way around. So we've got all the nuts tight. Now what we're going to do is spin this wheel over real fast to see if there's any wobble and to make sure that this is centered up around the axle. I recommend buying the extended crank arm assembly. That allows the end of the crank arm to extend out further than the factory one. Otherwise, the pedal itself may come in contact with the engine. So instead of replacing the crank arm assembly now, I'm going to skip this step just to see how much clearance we're going to need, and then we'll see if these extended crank arms will actually do the job or if we'll need to do some additional modification. Unfortunately, with this bicycle that I'm using, I'm not going to have space for the airbox, so I'm going to have to come up with a different design to make this work. So for now, I went and took the airbox off, and we're going to go ahead and install the engine. The next thing we want to do is install the motor onto the motor mount. I don't really trust lock washers, so I always recommend using a medium strength thread locker. It's important to make sure you install this plate onto the engine before installing it onto the bicycle, because if you install this mount onto the bicycle frame first, you won't be able to get to the bolts that hold the engine to the motor mount. We're going to go ahead and reinstall these two engine mounts. Just keep them loose so you can later adjust them. Next thing we do is install these motor mounts. I always like to use a little bit of thread lock on them as well. Last thing you want is for these things to vibrate loose. So this is a way to actually pull this crank arm off if you have the right tools. I don't have the tools for this, but I'm going to use a pitman arm puller, which will work just fine. The The way to do this is just start threading this in. We're just going to tighten it down. This is going to pull it loose. This side definitely has an issue with the crank arm coming in impact with the engine, so we'll definitely have to change it out. As you can see, the crank arm now clears the side of the engine. The downside of converting a mountain bike is that I lost 3 sprockets and I traded it for 1. So there's definitely some compromise involved, but I think it's going to be worth it. Okay, next part of the process is to get the chain installed. We want to make sure that the chain isn't too long, and we may have to end up removing a couple of links. Okay, that's going to be perfect. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this setup without the chain tensioner, because that chain tensioner, from what I understand, can be pretty dangerous. We need to remove some links. There is a special tool designed to do this. Another option is just to use a center punch. You can just punch out the pin to the link. So just a tip on the master link keeper, what you don't want to do is if you face the master link keeper like this, if it comes in contact, it'll peel off the keeper and then you'll lose your chain. So I always recommend having the closed end facing the direction the chain is heading, just to avoid catastrophe. You're going to see most people install their chain tensioners like this. The problem is this can roll to the side, get caught up in the spokes, and all of a sudden your wheel's going to lock up and you're going to end up crashing. So my goal is always to eliminate any sort of chain tensioner if possible. So in order to do this, we're going to modify the engine mount a little bit so we can slide the engine forward enough to cause this chain to become tight. So I was able to delete this chain tensioner simply by using the different motor mount adjustments, as well as being able to slide the location of the engine up and down a little bit to come up with a really nice tension. So next up, we're going to install the exhaust. Make sure you use the exhaust gasket. I'm intentionally leaving this heat shield off because I want the engine to get as much air as possible to keep the engine cool. The next step is to install the fuel shutoff. So we're going to go ahead and add this little rubber gasket. Just be careful not to over tighten this. There's no need to get too aggressive with this or it could strip out. Okay, we've got a pretty big problem we got to overcome. We got 3 cables that are exposed, and if I put the tank on top, these cables are not going to function. One of these goes to the rear brakes, and then of course they go to the gears. So what I'm going to do is use a piece of PVC pipe that I have split. I went ahead and just cut this. I'm going to lay it right over top of these cables, and then allow freedom of movement of these cables once I mount the tank. Up next, we're going to install a fuel line. We need to install the accelerator cable as well as the on-off switch. In order to do that, we need to remove this grip. These grips can be a bit of a challenge, and I don't want to get this thing all oily, so I'm going to use compressed air. We're just going to put the accelerator cable into position. So in order for this to stay secure and not rotate, this has a little dowel, so we're going to have to drill a small hole into the handlebar. I'm going to use a 1/4-inch drill bit to do that. In order to drill this hole without the drill bit moving all over the place, I'm going to use a center punch to hit the handlebar and that allow the drill bit to stay in position. The accelerator cable is going to route behind the seat, and it's going to go through this little bracket. So it's pretty important to note the position of the accelerator before you attach the cable. If the cable is too short because it's not adjusted right, the idle is going to be extremely high. In fact, the engine could rev almost out of control. So make sure that the accelerator cable is long enough. Once you attach it, you want to make sure it returns to the home position, which this one does. As you can see, the accelerator is working well. It's important to have this ignition cable out of the way, so I'm going to just zip tie this to the frame. We're going to attach the red to the brown and the black to the blue. I'm going to leave the chain guard off. It's something to consider though. If you're worried about safety, definitely put it on. This is the engine stop switch. Once the engine is running, all you have to do to get the bike going is to pull back on the throttle. The choke is in the start position. Once the engine is running, all you have to do is slide it over to the run position. So to get this engine to fit properly, I had to modify the air box. Well, it's not pretty. It does a good job of keeping the dirt out. So to get this started, we're going to move this to the outer position. This is the choke, and this should allow us to get more fuel to get it started. So which engine kit is better, the 2-stroke kit or the 4-stroke kit? I really think that depends on what you're looking for, so I'll break it down by talking about the advantages of each. First, for the 2-stroke kit. As I see it, there are 5 main advantages that the 2-stroke kit has over the 4-stroke kit. The first one is the weight. This is a very light engine compared to the 4-stroke, weighing in about half as much. The second advantage is this is a breeze to install. Look at all this space. This is a small engine and it is so easy to put this engine into a frame. The third advantage, even though it's smaller, it also has more power than the 4-stroke engine. One of the reasons it has more power is because it's a bigger engine as far as displacement. Even though it's advertised as 80 cc, it's actually only 66, but that's still a lot larger than the 50 cc 4-stroke engine. This engine puts out around 2.5 horsepower compared to only 1.6 horsepower with the 4-stroke engine. The next major advantage is the price. This kit can be found for around $100 to $120. If you're really looking around, you can get a great deal on these. Probably the biggest advantage is you do not have to change out your factory crank arms and you do not have to change out the main front sprocket. This means that you don't lose any of your gears and you can ride this bicycle with or without the help of the engine. So with all the advantages the 2-stroke has over the 4-stroke, by now you're probably thinking, well, the 2-stroke is the only way to go. However, there are 6 major advantages that the 4-stroke kit has over the 2-stroke. The first one is it's much easier to start. Having a pull start on the side of the engine, on the second pull right out of the box, this engine started. Since I've had this kit, every time I pull on the pull start, it only takes 1 to 2 pulls to get the engine going. So the engine is really easy to start. The 2-stroke kit doesn't have a pull start or a kick start. You actually have to get the bike rolling and then let the clutch out in order to get the engine to start. The second major advantage is that there isn't any exhaust smoke. A lot of people have complained about all the exhaust smoke out of the 2-stroke kit, but this is a very clean burning engine. The third major advantage is the noise. This is a very, very quiet engine kit compared to the 2-stroke kit. The next major advantage is that this is a very easy bike to ride because this kit has a centrifugal clutch. The 2-stroke kit doesn't. So to get this bike going, all you have to do is twist the throttle grip and the bike's going to take off. With the 2-stroke kit, you have to use a clutch to get the engine started, and then you have to use the clutch to get going and then get stopped. The next major advantage is fuel efficiency. This is a very fuel efficient engine compared to the 2-stroke kit. While I don't know the exact fuel efficiency for each, from riding both kits, I can tell you I get better fuel efficiency with the 4-stroke engine. The final advantage is that this is a very smooth running engine compared to the 2-stroke. At higher speeds, the 2-stroke tends to vibrate quite a bit, but the 4-stroke hardly vibrates at all. That 4-stroke bike build was a lot of fun. It wasn't all that difficult either. I was really impressed though with how fast that bike was capable of going out of the box without any mods. 37 miles per hour, that's pretty fast. The 2-stroke bike is equally impressive. So if you're in the market for a 2-stroke or 4-stroke bike, both of these kits are under 200 bucks. It's really hard to beat the price. Anyway, I'd like your video ideas on what type of bike mods I should do to either the 2-stroke or the 4-stroke bikes. I'm really interested in seeing what these bikes are capable of, and there's a lot of good video ideas out there on some neat modifications. So give me your video ideas. I read and reply to just about every comment. Anyway, I hope you'll like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching the video, and I look forward to next time.